Go to Canberra now. The Prime Minister has doubled down on its social media ban on children under a certain age. The cut-off age is yet to be determined, though the government is looking at an age range of between 14 and 16. Some mental health experts aren't so convinced about the proposal, though. And joining me now is Headspace Head of Clinical Leadership, Nicola Palfrey. Nicola, thanks so much for your time. Are you worried about undoing some of the good things that we do see in social media, like young people in particular finding community?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we're worried about. I think none of us are naive enough to think that there's no harm being done by social media, or that there's no reason to be concerned about some of the content that children and young people are being exposed to. But I think what we're concerned about is that bans sometimes are a bit of a blunt instrument in terms of not considering that some of the unintended consequences. And there's some of the things to talk about. So we know children and young people do find connection online. They have opportunities for advocacy and for connecting with others that they may not have access to in their local communities, and that can be a protective factor.
Yeah, I understand that as well, but when you look at the harms and the way the algorithm reinforces some negative behaviour, the potential for bullying, for age-inappropriate material, how do you weigh that up, Nicola?
Well, I think that's where we need to look at where the responsibility for that content and the modifications to algorithms and protections that can be put in place by the organisations that are feeding up this content to children and young people. And so we can't just put the responsibility on young people for managing that, because there are things that can be in place, and there's certainly more things that can be in place in terms of framing up and ensuring that that sort of content is taken down, it's not being fed up, that there's things within the algorithm that stop infinite scrolling or other identification of harmful content and topics. So I think there's a lot that can be done within that the social media organisations need to take responsibility for as well.
Yeah, but the point is they're not taking responsibility, and if they did, I don't think governments like the South Australian government, now the federal government, would have to consider the nuclear option, really, of banning children under the age of 16, let's say.
Well, I think there's some action being taken. I agree there's certainly more that can be done, and there can be more pressure put on the organisations to make those bans, make those modifications. But I also think the other things that we need to consider are how we support education around content and managing content. So we spend a lot of time thinking about how we can support children and young people to manage these kind of offline challenges, bullying or exposure to harmful content, exposure to risky behaviour. And so those things need to happen in the online world as well. But it's a multi-pronged approach. And I think one of the things we're really keen to ensure, which we don't think has happened as much as it should be, is engaging young people in these conversations themselves so they can help inform what they need in terms of managing this stuff.
Yeah, a lot of, this is not extensive research. Young people, I think, are aware of the drawbacks of social media, but if you're already on social media, there's a level of addiction with it. We all know that. We're all a little bit addicted to our phones, aren't we? So are they really going to, make the recommendation that they shouldn't be on it?
Well, I think we underestimate young people. I think young people have a very sophisticated understanding of the harms of social media, and they say both things are true. So we've done surveys of thousands of young Australians, and they do tell us that they're aware they're probably on their phones more than they should be. They can get distressed by content they see, whether it be around distressing topics or comparing themselves unhelpfully with images and those sorts of things. So they're very aware of those sides of it, but they also are saying, help us manage it, help us educate ourselves about how we handle social interactions and so forth. So I think we can sometimes think that young people are just going to be like, let us do what we want, but they're actually not. They're kind of much more understanding, and particularly when you talk to young people, as we do in our youth reference groups, who may be at that upper end, so 16, 17, 18, they're calling for more support for their younger peers and siblings. So they're not naive. They're just saying, chat to us, include us in the conversation, and help us make decisions that help us navigate this world that we've grown up in and we're living in a way that's good for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Really fascinating to talk to you, Nicola. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.